First Contact's irony. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the helm of the ESS Pathfinder, Earth's most advanced deep space vessel, as it dropped out of FTL on the edge of the Proxima Centauri system. The ship's quantum sensors had detected something unusual, massive energy signatures that didn't match any known natural phenomena. As the main viewing screen adjusted to the local light spectrum, the bridge crew fell silent. 3 enormous vessels hung in space before them, their surfaces rippling like living tissue. Each ship was easily 20 times the size of the Pathfinder, with organic-looking protrusions that seemed to pulse with internal energy. They appeared less like ships and more like spaceborne creatures that had evolved naturally in the void. "Dr. Patel, what are we looking at?" Sarah asked, keeping her voice steady despite the tension coursing through her body. The chief xenobiologist's fingers danced across his holographic interface. "They're definitely artificial constructs, Captain, but they're partially biological. The energy readings suggest a fusion of organic and technological systems far beyond our current understanding." Before Sarah could respond, Lieutenant Rodriguez at Communications straightened in his chair. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission. It's already in English." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. If they could already communicate in English, they'd been watching humanity for some time. "Put it through, main screen." The image that appeared caused several crew members to involuntarily step back. The alien was tall and elegant, with iridescent scales covering its body and 4 arms ending in delicate, clawed fingers. Its face was almost beautiful in an alien way, with large, compound eyes that shifted color like oil on water. But it was the creature's smile that made Sarah's blood run cold, rows of needle-sharp teeth arranged in concentric circles. "Greetings, little prey minds," the alien spoke, its voice melodious despite the terrifying implications of its words. "I am Overseer Zixtal of the Viridian Collective. We have been observing your species with great interest." Sarah straightened her uniform, decades of training kicking in. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth spaceship Pathfinder. We come in peace and welcome peaceful contact with your civilization." The diplomatic phrases felt hollow even as she spoke them. The alien's laugh was like wind chimes made of razor blades. "Peace? Yes, for now. Your kind always speaks of peace when first confronted by your betters. But you intrigue us, little ones. Never before have we encountered prey that managed to reach the stars before being properly harvested." Dr. Patel stepped forward, his scientific curiosity apparently overriding his fear. "Fascinating. Your terminology suggests you classify species into distinct categories. May I ask how you determine these classifications?" "It is simple, curiosity-filled morsel," Zixtal replied, seeming amused by the question. "In this galaxy, there are those who hunt, and those who are hunted. The Viridian Collective represents the apex predators of known space. We consume, we grow, we evolve. Yet here you stand, soft-skinned prey who have somehow built ships and weapons. A most interesting anomaly." Sarah felt her hand instinctively move toward the tactical console. "Overseer, humanity doesn't consider itself prey to anyone. We're willing to establish diplomatic relations, but any hostile actions will be met with force." The alien scales rippled with what might have been genuine delight. "Oh, how delightful. The prey bares its tiny teeth. We have indeed chosen correctly in making contact rather than proceeding with standard harvesting protocols. Your species will provide much entertainment as we study your peculiar developments." As the conversation continued, Sarah noticed her tactical officer silently indicating that he detected multiple smaller ships moving into position around them. The Viridians were already boxing them in while maintaining this facade of diplomatic contact. "We look forward to cultural exchange," Sarah said carefully, "but I must be clear. Earth and its colonies are sovereign territory. Any unauthorized incursion will be considered an act of war." "War?" Zixtal's scales shifted to a deeper hue. "Little one, war implies equals in conflict. What you call war, we call hunting. But fear not, your species has earned a period of observation. Expect our diplomatic delegation within your solar system within one standard rotation of your planet. We have much to discuss about your place in the natural order." As the transmission ended, Sarah turned to her crew. "Send everything we have to Earth Command, Priority Alpha, and get me a direct line to the Defense Council." She looked back at the massive bioships looming outside. "Something tells me humanity just became part of a food chain we didn't even know existed." Dr. Patel was still studying his readings. "Captain, these energy signatures, they're advanced, but not impossibly so. Their technology seems to have developed along entirely different lines than ours, focusing on biological integration rather than pure mechanical engineering." "Good," Sarah replied, a plan already forming in her mind. "Because something tells me we're going to need every advantage we can get. If they want to study us as prey, they might just learn why Earth's predators learn to fear their prey's intelligence." As the Pathfinder began its journey back to Earth, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that humanity had just entered a game where they didn't know all the rules. But if there was one thing humans were good at, it was adapting to new rules, and sometimes breaking them entirely. The hunted learns to hunt. The underground war room beneath Geneva hummed with activity as holographic displays showed the positions of Earth's rapidly mobilizing defense forces. 3 weeks had passed since the Pathfinder's encounter, and humanity had been working overtime to prepare for the upcoming diplomatic visit. Dr. Maya Patel, recently promoted to head of xenobiology, stood before the assembled military and scientific leadership. Her presentation showed detailed analyses of the Viridian bioship's capabilities, gleaned from the Pathfinder's sensor data. "Their entire technological base is fundamentally different from ours," she explained, highlighting the strange organic-mechanical hybrid systems. "They've evolved their technology along biological lines, growing their ships rather than building them. It's brilliant, but it comes with inherent limitations." General Helena Rodriguez leaned forward, her cybernetic eye whirring as it focused on the display. "Limitations we can exploit." "Potentially," Maya nodded. "Their bioships are incredibly resilient, but they follow biological principles. They need to maintain homeostasis, they have to regulate internal temperatures, and most importantly, they have to eat." Captain Chen, attending via hologram from the Pathfinder, spoke up. "That explains their harvesting terminology. They're not just being metaphorical about hunting. Their ships literally consume resources." "Exactly," Maya confirmed. "And this is where we might have an advantage. Their biological systems are more efficient than our mechanical ones in many ways, but they're also more vulnerable to disruption. A mechanical system can function in conditions that would kill living tissue." The room's main display shifted to show Earth's new defensive preparations. Orbital platforms bristled with conventional weapons, but alongside them were new systems that looked almost primitive by comparison. General Rodriguez gestured at these installations. "This is Project Thornfield," she explained. "Instead of trying to match their biotechnology, we're going in the opposite direction. Pure mechanical systems, hardened against biological interference. No AI, no neural networks they might be able to digest or corrupt. Just good old-fashioned human ingenuity." The display zoomed in on one platform that appeared to be nothing more than a sophisticated mirror array. "We've learned from Earth's own history," Rodriguez continued. "When a technologically superior force encounters a seemingly primitive opponent, they often underestimate them. These platforms appear simple, but they're designed to turn the Viridians' own biological nature against them." Maya brought up another display showing simulation results. "Their ship's organic components require certain wavelengths of radiation for optimal function. These platforms can focus and amplify solar radiation to create zones that would be extremely uncomfortable for their biological systems, like giving them a sunburn from the inside out." "But we're not just playing defense," Captain Chen added. "The Pathfinder's encounters gave us crucial data about their psychology. They think in predator-prey dynamics, and that's their weakness. They've never had to consider that prey might deliberately set traps." The next hours were spent reviewing deployment strategies and contingency plans. Earth's industries had been running at full capacity, but they weren't building traditional warships. Instead, they were creating systems that would take advantage of the fundamental differences between mechanical and biological technology. As the meeting concluded, Maya remained behind, studying the biological data from the Viridian ships. Something had been nagging at her, a pattern she couldn't quite identify. Their technology was advanced, yes, but there was something almost familiar about its basic structure. Her tablet chimed with a message from the Lunar Research Base. The preliminary results from their analysis of Viridian communication patterns had come in. As she read the report, her eyes widened. "General Rodriguez," she called out just as the older woman was leaving. "I need to show you something. Their communication system. It's based on predator-prey signaling patterns from their homeworld. They've essentially evolved their entire civilization around hunting behaviors." Rodriguez paused in the doorway. "And why is that significant?" "Because," Maya explained, her excitement growing, "it means they're locked into certain patterns of behavior. They literally can't think outside their evolutionary framework. But humans, we've spent our entire history adapting to new situations, learning to use our environment in unexpected ways." "You're saying their greatest strength is actually their weakness." "Exactly. They've never had to adapt, to change their fundamental nature. They've always been at the top of their food chain. But humanity," Maya brought up an image of Earth's evolutionary history. "We've been both predator and prey. We've learned to think in ways they can't imagine." Rodriguez smiled grimly. "Then let's show them what happens when the prey decides to change the rules of the game." In orbit above Earth, the defensive platforms continued their silent deployment, looking deceptively simple against the backdrop of space. In less than 48 hours, the Viridian diplomatic fleet would arrive, expecting to find a primitive prey species scrambling to appear civilized. Instead, they would find that humanity had prepared a hunting ground of its own. Turning the tables. The Viridian diplomatic fleet dropped out of FTL drive at the edge of the solar system exactly as scheduled. 5 bioships, each larger than anything humanity had ever built, their surfaces rippling with patterns of bioluminescence. But unlike their first encounter, Earth was ready. From her position on the Lunar Command Center, Dr. Maya Patel watched the tactical display with barely contained tension. The Viridian ships moved with the fluid grace of deep-sea predators, their formation a perfect hunting pattern they probably weren't even conscious of following. "They're staying exactly where we predicted," General Rodriguez observed, her cybernetic eye tracking multiple data streams simultaneously. Behavioral programming runs deep. The Viridian ships had positioned themselves in a classic predator's ambush formation, one that would have been devastatingly effective against prey that followed expected escape patterns. But humanity had long since learned not to run in predictable directions. "Overseer Zixtal is hailing us," Lieutenant Commander Santos reported from his communication station. The alien leader appeared on the main screen, scales shimmering with barely concealed anticipation. "Greetings, clever prey. We have returned as promised to continue our diplomatic discussions." General Rodriguez stepped forward, her artificial eye glowing softly. "Welcome back to Sol System, Overseer. We've prepared a proper reception for your delegation." The alien's multiple eyes focused on Rodriguez's cybernetics with obvious distaste. "You merge your flesh with machines. How primitive. True advancement comes through biological evolution, not crude mechanical additions." "We prefer to think of it as adaptation," Rodriguez replied smoothly. "Speaking of which, we've prepared a demonstration of human capabilities. A cultural exchange, if you will." Maya watched the tactical display as the Viridian ships moved closer, their formation tightening. They were so focused on their planned ambush that they hadn't noticed the subtle changes in solar radiation patterns around them. "Your species continues to fascinate us," Zixtal said. "Most prey attempt to flee or hide. You invite us closer. Perhaps you have accepted your proper place in the natural order." Rodriguez smiled. "Oh, we've definitely learned our place in the natural order. We've just drawn some different conclusions about what that means. Now, the space around the Viridian ships suddenly blazed with focused sunlight. The orbital mirrors they dismissed as primitive reflectors aligned perfectly, creating a web of amplified solar radiation precisely tuned to interfere with their ship's biological systems. The effect was immediate. The beautiful bioluminescent patterns across their hulls became erratic, their previously graceful movements turning jerky and uncoordinated. But this was just the beginning. "What treachery is this?" Zixtal demanded, their scales fluctuating wildly. This is adaptation," Rodriguez replied. "You see, we studied your beautiful bioships carefully. Remarkable evolution, turning stellar radiation into sustenance. But like any biological system, too much of a good thing can be harmful." The Viridian ships attempted to regroup, but each evasive maneuver was met with a precisely calculated adjustment from Earth's defensive network. They were being herded, Maya realized, just like prehistoric humans had herded larger, stronger prey animals. "You dared to hunt the hunters." Zixtal's voice carried genuine shock. "Hunt you? No, Overseer. We're not hunting you. We're teaching you." Maya stepped into view. "You evolved as apex predators, and that shaped everything about your civilization. But humans, we evolved as both predator and prey. We learned to survive by understanding both roles." The Viridian ships launched what appeared to be organic missiles, but these too were caught in the web of focused light, their biological guidance systems overwhelmed by the carefully modulated radiation. "Impossible," Zixtal whispered. "Prey cannot. Prey should not. Your civilization's fundamental mistake," Rodriguez continued, "was assuming that being prey makes a species weak. But on Earth, prey species developed some of the most sophisticated survival strategies. The ones that survived learned to adapt, to think differently, to turn predators' strengths into weaknesses." The Viridian fleet was now completely surrounded by Earth's defensive network, their ships' biological systems struggling to maintain homeostasis under the precise assault of redirected solar radiation. "This is your only warning," Rodriguez stated firmly. "Earth is not your hunting ground. Humanity is not your prey. We're something your evolutionary history hasn't prepared you for, prey that learned to hunt back." The silence that followed was broken only by the soft hum of equipment and the irregular pulsing of the Viridian ship's distressed biosystems. Finally, Zixtal spoke, their voice carrying a new tone that none of their previous communications had shown: "Respect. Perhaps we have much to learn from each other after all." As the Viridian ships carefully withdrew to a safe distance, Maya turned to Rodriguez. "They'll be back, you know. This goes against everything they believe about how the universe should work." Rodriguez nodded. "Of course they will. But next time, they'll come as equals seeking to understand, not predators looking for prey. Sometimes the most important evolution happens in how we think." The tactical display showed the Viridian ships retreating, their movements still unsteady. But more importantly, their formation had changed. They no longer moved in a hunting pattern, but rather in a defensive posture. The hunters had learned what it meant to feel hunted, and nothing would ever be the same. Evolution's joke. 6 months after the confrontation in Earth's orbit, Dr. Maya Patel found herself in an unprecedented position, presenting human evolutionary theory to a conference of alien scientists. The massive amphitheater aboard the neutral space station Concordia held representatives from 12 different species, including a delegation of very uncomfortable-looking Viridians. "The key to understanding humanity's development," Maya explained, gesturing to the holographic display showing human evolutionary history, "lies not in our final form, but in our adaptability. Unlike species that evolved purely as predators or prey, humans remained adaptively flexible." The assembled scientists watched as the display showed early human ancestors moving through different ecological niches, sometimes hunting, sometimes being hunted. A Viridian scientist named Kexti raised one of their 4 hands. But this defies all known evolutionary models, they protested. Species must specialize to survive. Your generalist approach should have led to extinction. Maya smiled. That's what makes Earth's evolutionary history so unique. Our planet's rapidly changing conditions meant that specialization was often a dead end. Species that couldn't adapt to new circumstances died out. Humans survived precisely because we didn't specialize. From her seat in the audience, General Rodriguez watched with interest as the alien scientists struggled with this concept. Her cybernetic eye picked up subtle stress indicators in their body language. This wasn't just academic disagreement, but a fundamental challenge to their worldview. Consider this, Maya continued, bringing up new data. Every predator species represented here evolved superior physical capabilities, strength, speed, natural weapons. But humans, we remained physically unimpressive. Instead, we developed something far more powerful, behavioral and technological adaptability. The holographic display shifted to show early human tool use, then the development of agriculture, and finally modern technology. We didn't become better predators or prey. We transcended the category entirely. A reptilian scientist from the Crick's hegemony rose. This explains the unprecedented nature of your defensive systems. You don't think like predators or prey, so your strategies are unpredictable. Exactly. Maya nodded. When the Viridian fleet arrived expecting typical prey behavior, they encountered something their evolutionary history hadn't prepared them for. We don't follow predator-prey behavioral patterns because we never fully committed to either role. In the back of the amphitheater, Captain Sarah Chen of the Pathfinder watched as understanding began to dawn across the alien faces. The implications went far beyond military strategy. This challenged the very foundation of galactic society. A small furry scientist from a prey species called the Nexari spoke up, their voice trembling with excitement. This means the traditional galactic hierarchy isn't inevitable. It's not the natural order at all. Precisely, Maya confirmed. The predator-prey dichotomy that shaped galactic civilization is just one possible evolutionary path. Humanity demonstrates that there are other ways to develop intelligence and technology. Overseer Zixtal, who had been silent until now, rose from their seat. The Viridian leader's scales had taken on a deep, thoughtful hue. Dr. Patel, you suggest that our own evolutionary success may have become our limitation. Our inability to conceive of alternatives to the predator-prey relationship, it has blinded us to other possibilities. Yes, but it's not too late to adapt, Maya responded. If there's one thing human history teaches us, it's that intelligence can overcome instinct. We may be shaped by our evolutionary history, but we're not bound by it. The discussion continued for hours, becoming increasingly animated as scientists from different species began to see their own development in a new light. Prey species realized they weren't destined for subjugation, while predator species grappled with the possibility that their natural superiority was more circumstantial than cosmic. Later, in a private meeting room, Maya sat with Rodriguez and Chen, reviewing the day's events. Think they really understand? Chen asked, watching the departing alien ships through the station's viewport. Some do, Maya replied. The younger ones especially. It's harder for the older generation to accept that everything they believed about the natural order might be wrong. Rodriguez's cybernetic eye whirred as she processed data from the conference. The real question is how this changes galactic politics. The prey species are already looking at us as an example. The predator species see us as a threat to their dominance. They're all missing the point, Maya said softly. We're not an example of prey becoming predators. We're proof that there's another way entirely. The galaxy doesn't have to be divided into hunters and hunted. Try telling that to millions of years of evolutionary programming, Chen remarked. We will, Maya responded, pulling up new research data on her tablet. Because we've discovered something even more interesting about human adaptability, something that could change everything. The data showed unusual patterns in human neural architecture, Patterns that suggested humanity's capacity for change went far deeper than anyone had realized. As the three women studied the findings, they knew that the galaxy's understanding of evolution, and humanity's place in it, was about to change again. New Order. 1 year after humanity's scientific revelations shook the galactic community, the Concordia station hung in space above Earth, its halls filled with representatives from across known space. But this time, they weren't gathered for a scientific conference. They were here to prevent a war that could tear the galaxy apart. Dr. Maya Patel stood at a window overlooking Earth, watching as ships from dozens of species moved through carefully designated lanes. Some belonged to traditional prey species who had begun refusing their designated role in the galactic hierarchy. Others were predator species worried about losing their dominant position. The tension was palpable. "Quite a view, isn't it?" Captain Sarah Chen joined her at the window. "Hard to believe this all started with one first contact mission." "The Viridians just happened to be the ones who found us first," Maya replied. "But this confrontation was inevitable. The galaxy's biological hierarchy was never as stable as everyone pretended." General Rodriguez approached, her cybernetic eye scanning the assembled alien vessels. "Speaking of our scaly friends, the Viridian High Council has arrived, and they're not happy about the proposed Galactic Concordat." The Concordat was humanity's bold proposal, a new framework for galactic society that moved beyond the predator-prey dichotomy. It had gained surprising support from younger generations across all species, but the old guard was fighting it fiercely. Inside the station's Grand Assembly Chamber, representatives from 37 spacefaring species gathered in tiered seating. The traditional segregation between predator and prey species had broken down, with delegations mixed together in new alliances. Overseer Zixtel, now speaking for a reformed faction within Viridian society, took the central platform. Their scales showed a complex pattern that Maya had learned to recognize as internal conflict. For millennia, Zixtel began, "We believe the division between hunter and hunted was the natural order. We built our civilization, our technology, our very identity around this belief." They paused, their multiple eyes scanning the chamber. "We were wrong." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. For a Viridian leader to admit error was unprecedented. "The humans have shown us that evolution is not destiny. Their neural architecture, their adaptability, their technology, all of it proves that intelligence can overcome instinct. That civilization means moving beyond our biological imperatives." A representative from the Crick's hegemony rose in protest. "You would have us deny our very nature, become soft like the humans with their machines and their artificial adaptations." "No," Maya stepped forward, joining Zixtal on the platform. "We're suggesting something far more difficult and far more rewarding. We're suggesting you expand your nature." The holographic display activated, showing the results of the past year's research. Human history is filled with examples of people overcoming their instincts, their prejudices, their limitations, not by denying their nature, but by choosing to be more than what evolution initially designed them to be. Captain Chen added her voice from her position among the Earth delegation. "Every human civilization has had to learn this lesson. Those who clung to old hierarchies, who insisted that strength alone determined worth, they stagnated and fell. Those who learned to adapt, to cooperate, to see beyond immediate biological impulses, they thrived." And now, General Rodriguez continued, "The galaxy faces the same choice. We can cling to an oversimplified biological hierarchy, or we can embrace the complexity that actually drives evolution forward." The chamber erupted in debate, but something was different this time. The lines of discussion no longer followed strict predator-prey divisions. Species that had never cooperated were finding common ground, sharing perspectives that would have been impossible a year ago. A young Viridian scientist named Vexley, who had worked closely with Maya over the past year, raised their voice above the chaos. "Look at what we've already achieved. Our bioships now incorporate mechanical elements inspired by human technology. Prey species have developed defensive innovations that make them stronger without becoming predators. We're all becoming more than we were. The debate raged for days, but the outcome was becoming clear. Too many species had tasted the possibility of change, had glimpsed what they could become if freed from rigid biological roles. The Galactic Concordat passed by a narrow margin. It established new principles for interspecies relations, emphasized cooperative development over hierarchical domination, and created frameworks for sharing the strengths of different evolutionary approaches. As the assembly concluded, Maya found herself back at the window with Chen and Rodriguez, watching ships depart. "Think it will last?" Chen asked. "It has to," Rodriguez replied. The old system was already breaking down. This gives everyone a path forward. Maya smiled, watching a Viridian bioship dock alongside a vessel from a former prey species. "You know what the real irony is? We didn't overcome the predator-prey relationship by being better predators or prey. We overcame it by showing everyone there was more to evolution than eating or being eaten." "So what are we now?" Chen wondered. "Not predator, not prey. We're teachers," Maya replied. "We're living proof that biology isn't destiny. And maybe that's what humanity's real role in the galaxy will be, helping others see past their evolutionary blinders to what they could become." As if to emphasize her point, a new ship appeared from FTL Travel, a hybrid design combining Viridian biotechnology with human mechanical engineering. It was ugly, ungainly, and absolutely beautiful in what it represented, the first step toward something entirely new. The galaxy was changing, moving beyond ancient divisions toward something more complex and interesting. And humanity, the species that had never quite fit into the old categories, was helping to guide the way forward, one adaptation at a time.